Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Aaron. Welcome to episode 6 of my artist series. This week's guest is my good friend, Jon Anthony. He's someone I respect very much in the music industry, not only for his true talents, but overall, he's an awesome, genuine dude, and he's a great father, and he's just very well respected in the community. And I'm really excited to have him on, so let me bring him on. Hey, what's up, brother?
What's going on, man? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and
Uh,
clear, man. Nice hat.
right on, man. Thank you. Dope
Repping it
hat.
well.
Is this? I had to ask you right off the bat. Is this a PG-13 or PG
This is no holds
conversation?
barred.
Or
You can cuss, you can fucking say whatever the hell you want.
all right, perfect, perfect. Right up my alley then.
Shout out to all the homies joining. Thank you guys so much. Got Rich on here, Jesse, Andrew. What
What
up,
up,
guys?
Rich, Andrew, Jesse? What's up, fellas?
So yeah, man, thank you so much for jumping in today. I know you and I have talked a little bit offline, and you've seen what I've been doing with my artist series, and I'm reaching out to a whole bunch of artists that are on my top list of favorite people in the world, and just kind of peeling the onion back and getting to know you guys a little bit more. Obviously, you and I know each other for a couple decades now, but
Yeah,
in the grand scheme of things, I wanted to start interviewing artists and just really getting to an authentic vibe with them and talking about what their life's about and how they're balancing life through house music culture and things of that nature. So I really do appreciate you being on here today with me and jumping on. So
yeah. No,
uh,
I appreciate you asking me, man. I mean, the guests you guys have already had, or you've already had so far. I mean, phenomenal interviews, great guys. And people that I am aware of and know about, but definitely not. I don't consider myself anywhere on their level, but I appreciate you asking me to be on this. It's an honor, man. So thank you. I appreciate
thank
it.
you, man. Hell yeah, hell yeah. So for the people that are jumping on, why don't you give us a brief update or overview of like how your music journey started and where you were at that point in time and then up to today.
Sure. So basically, I had a musician father. He was a part-time musician, played drums. He also did sound for a lot of local bands in the Bay Area, most notably Malo, which is a well-known Latin rock band out of the Bay Area. And so I was pretty much around bands my entire life. He would take me to clubs where he was setting up sound. He would bring me into band sessions, and I always gravitated towards the drums. So I'd say maybe around my 12th birthday, he finally caved in. He was on the fence, and, about letting me get into the music thing because he had been there, done that, and really wasn't sure if he wanted his son to pursue something like that. So, I begged and pleaded. I banged on everything I could get my hands on prior to getting my first drum set, which when I was about 12 years old. And then I just started playing my freshman year in high school. I took band, but I really didn't have any interest in reading music. It wasn't something I was into. I felt more comfortable playing by ear. And so after my freshman year of band, I quit and just continued playing by ear, and kind of learning on my own and then learning through my dad and things that he taught me. Um, Fast forward, my sophomore year, I got to go to my first rave from a good friend of mine, Kawashi Hollins, well-known guy. In 92, I believe it was. He took me and two other friends of ours that were just green to the scene, and basically took us to our first underground rave. And I was hooked. But funny thing
This is
is,
this is in the Bay
but
Area, right?
this is in
San
Bay
Francisco.
Area, yeah, San
Okay, okay,
Francisco. This is
okay.
back in the days where you had to go on a journey, like a scavenger hunt to get your ticket,
Yeah.
then find where the party was. And so after that night, I fell in love with the scene. But actually, I was more in love with the music and the dancing. And so I grew up also, break dancing and b-boy stuff when I was a little kid at like 6 years old. And watching some of these guys battle in the circles and just the way that everyone was just having a great time and the music was, fantastic. I basically, I got hooked in. And so from there, I started, going to raves between my sophomore year and then, throughout high school. And the thing that I actually gravitated towards first, before even the decks and DJing, were guys that were playing the percussion off to the side from the DJ. So timbales and congas and things like that, while they were near the dance circles. And so, I would dance and battle and do all that thing, for the longest time. But I also thought it was pretty cool that these guys were playing drums on the side. So I think it might have been my 17th, 18th birthday. I got a set of timbales, which is a Latin percussion. And I used to play to, mixtapes that I had at home from, guys like Yano and Tony, Garth, the Wicked Crew, DJ Dan, who was one of my favorites back then. And then, fast forward from that, one drunken night, I was with Mikey. You remember Mikey that I used to DJ with? He would DJ, I would dance, and I would work on my moves, and, he would DJ. And so we were drinking, and, one thing led to another. I said, hey, man, let me get back there. Let me hop on there. And he's like, you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure, And he showed me how to mix a record. And as soon as I mixed my first record, that was it, man. I knew that I wanted to do it. I'd say maybe about a month later, I actually took those timbales that I had. I went to a local music store, similar like Skip's Music, a real small location. And I traded in those and paid a difference for some belt-driven Gemini turntables. And Mikey gifted me an old 2-channel Radio Shack mixer. There was no EQs on it. It was just straight 2 channels, and that was it. And I basically, but with some of his help, self-taught myself how to play, and then just started collecting records. And so from there, I was still living in the Bay Area. I had just started dating my wife at the time. She lived in Sacramento. We had a few mutual friends that lived in Sac, and that's when Cisco came into the picture. I met Cisco, and I basically, got a great opportunity for a job here in Sacramento, because I was in and out of school and just couldn't really figure things out. So I went ahead and relocated to Sacramento back in '99. So I started DJing around 97, where I started to learn. 98 is probably when I put my first mix, tape together. And then 99 is when I actually got my first gig, which was from Mike Regan, our good friend Mike Regan. He booked me for an after hours gig, which happened to be at a strip club, and Mike was known for throwing these lavish parties, and I don't know what it was with him in the strip clubs back then, but they seemed to work, man, because no one messed with us. You know what I mean? But I got to open for Barry Weaver, of all people. And
yeah, he was a popular name back then.
He was, man. He really was. Yeah. And so that was an honor to open for him. When I first started, I played a lot of techno, a lot of tribal, completely different to the sound that I play now. And then around 2001, 2002, Cisco handed me a CD from Derek Carter, which was called About Now. And I don't know if you're familiar with it. Wow. It's one of my favorite mixes. But as soon as I heard that, man, that just completely changed the way that I looked at music and playing music and, DJing it. And it brought me back to a lot of the sounds that I grew up listening with my dad with, funk and soul and jazz. And it just kind of touched me, a different way than techno and tribal had.
Sure.
And so what was that?
A little bit more soul.
Yeah. And so from there, I kind of just, developed into my sound of Jackin' House, which, I'm most known for, I would say. That's pretty much all I've played for the last, 2 decades. Yeah, man, that's how things got started. And then, let's see, around 2008, my son had just been born in 2007, and the scene had kind of changed in Sacramento. The promoters weren't, booking as many house DJs. They weren't paying as much as they were back in the days. And so a combination of that, and then the fact that I had to give up a spare room because I now had my second kid, you know, my son, I decided to just completely step away from the scene. And when I mean step away, I sold my collection of records, which was stupid of me. I sold my turntables. I completely cut myself off from the scene because I knew if I had any connection to it, I was still going to go back to it. So I had to completely just cut myself
Well,
off.
what was that like right there at that moment in time when you had to like really just make the decision that you had to go change directions and really just like put music aside? Was that a very hard decision for you, or were you just reprioritizing because you had children?
It was a hard decision. It was one where my wife even told me, "Don't sell the records," you know. But at the time, I didn't have anywhere to really put them at. You know, I didn't want to put them in storage, and you know, but I also I also made an excuse for myself that again, I had to separate myself, so I just had to completely get rid of everything.
Yeah.
But it was very, very tough, man. But you know, my kids and my family, they come first before anything else. They always have, they always will. And so for me at the time, although it was hard, I knew that I was doing the right thing for me. And you know, from there to kind of substitute what I was doing, that's when I really got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I would work, you know, obviously be there with my family, and I'd go train. And that's how I would, you know, kind of substitute that time that I was doing music would be with Jiu-Jitsu. So that went on until about right around to the time that we reconnected, which was around 2013, 14.
14, yeah.
Yeah, where we met at
Lugano's house.
yeah. No. Remember we met at the Waza Jiu-Jitsu grand opening.
Gets you there, yeah. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah, because Johnny was there
Yeah.
and he was training there, and that's where we ran into each other. And you know, we caught up, and you were telling me all the things you were doing, and that kind of sparked an interest in me. And then what really got me was you invited me out to I think Hytham's party. It was and Rich's, I think, was a cosmology party with oh my God, what's his name, man?
Was it the Migs party?
Migs, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that was the first party I'd been to in like 7, 8 years, man. And I was just blown away.
That
Yeah,
feeling.
man. Yeah. And so, and then shortly after that, you invited me out to, you know, throw down some music at, I forgot what party it was at the time, but it was at Vanguard's. Yeah, man, I got hooked. And from there, I went back out and bought my first controller. I was new to controllers. I mean, that's one thing I forgot to touch on is when I left the scene, I was still a vinyl guy. I never got a laptop. I never got CDJs. I dabbled with them a little bit at the Tower Club. They had an old CDJ 100, I think, or something like that with the little thumb drive on it, you know. So when I left the scene, I was all vinyl. I didn't even touch that stuff. So when I came back, it was like everything was new to me. I didn't know about. Yes, completely. I remember, you know, when I used to think back to Cascade, I was thinking Ohm days and, you know, that real soulful house stuff. And then after, you know, reconnecting with you and kind of getting reacquainted with the scene, I went ahead and Googled Cascade, and I see him barefoot on top of his decks in front of millions of people spinning the stuff at the time that I didn't know was EDM. And I was like, what the fuck? Where did, you know, everything just changed, you know? And then I just started Googling, you know, different things and YouTubing different stuff to see, you know, who was hot now and who was going on and, you know, this, that, and the other. That's when I first discovered J. Paul Ghetto, Demir, you know, and then, yeah, man, I mean, that's how things kind of transitioned. So,
yeah. I still remember having that conversation with you back in 2014 when we started reconnecting, and you're basically, you know, you were kind of on the fence of like, should I get back into music? Should I not? And I specifically remember telling you that music doesn't have any age.
Yep.
No age. You know what I mean? So you were telling me, sharing things with me that you felt like you're, you know, just older than what the clientele needed and things of that nature. And just kind of sharing with you the parties that I was involved in and the movements I was part of. um I saw that hunger still like burning in you. And now, fast forward, 6-8 years, now you own a record label. So was that ever, owning a record label, was that ever part of your dream? Did you ever think of that like 20 years ago or 25 years ago?
No, man. To be honest, the production thing came first, and I had an opportunity to get into production right around the time that I started DJing back in the late '90s, early 2000s, because of Rich Soto.
Yep.
I don't know if he remembers, but
Shout out.
yeah, shout out to Rich for sure, man. Back then, I used to live in a real small apartment off of Watt Avenue, and I'd always get shit for playing music there. So I'd always have to find somewhere to record a mixtape or even a mix CD. And Rich had a place down in Midtown, and he offered it up. Hey, man, come through, record it here. It's all good. And I remember going over there, and while I was there, Rich was on his laptop working on on music. And I always thought it was Fruity Loops that he was working on, but I think he told me it was Reason back then. I don't know why I always thought it was Fruity
I think
Loops.
it was Reason.
Yeah, and so he was showing me, and I thought it was cool, but I was just like, damn, I don't know where I'm going to get money to buy that program, because he was telling me it was kind of pricey back then, and then he's talking about extra components that you have to get, and I was like, man, I can barely just DJ at my little apartment, let alone start trying to make music. So I always kind of pushed it aside, but I definitely had an opportunity to learn while Rich was learning, and look what Rich does these days. I mean, he's phenomenal at what he does when it comes to making some music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my favorites.
So, so fast forward when we reconnected, man, I did have that hunger. Your saying of age is just a number resonated with me. And, that's around the time that we went to go to Andrew Lozano's place, and we were talking about production, and I made it my personal goal that I wanted to at least put one, if not two tracks out by the time I was 40. And at that time, I think I was maybe about 38, 39, somewhere around there. We went to Andrew's house, blown away by his studio. I mean, one of the best home studios that I've ever come across. I mean, it was ridiculous. And just having him sit there, talk with us music, show us what he's done, I got hooked, and that's around the time that me and you ran out and bought those laptops and, the keyboard and Ableton, and just started, learning and dabbling in it. So the record label kind of came later, man. I wasn't even expecting to finish one or two tracks and get them put out, let alone what I've put out in the last 6 years. You know what I mean? And so,
yeah, your growth has been truly amazing, man. You've had
thank you.
There, you had J. Paul Ghetto. You've thrown out a handful of fire releases, man. Like, where do you see the label in the next 5 years? Are you planning on growing it still, or just keeping it status quo?
You know what, man? Unfortunately, the release of the label came on 2020. Just about 3 months shy of when the pandemic hit, which was very unfortunate, because I was very honored and privileged to pick up a shitload of great music that we put out that year. Unfortunately, dance floors and, clubs didn't get to see it or hear it because of the pandemic, and shout out to all the folks that would put them on their live streams or their mixes, and showed us love that way. But it is definitely, like Tony Rangel was saying on on your other interview, it's definitely a labor of love. I'm still a rookie. I'm still new at running a label. And, I want to see it progress over the next 5 years. But I think what happened was I bit off more than I could chew, in all honesty, for that first year. I think we put out 17 tracks, 17 releases, or no, 17 tracks. And it was, I think, 13 or 14 releases, because one of them was a compilation. And I'm running this all by myself, man. So, with the help of Arturo Garza, he does the mastering for the label. Jesse James, he takes care of the art for the label. And then basically I'm the one that submits everything, kicks off the promotion for everything, sends out the promos. And then after all that, you have to deal with the booking of everything. And it makes peanuts. You know what I mean? That there's a very, very small amount of money that's even considered made with this, but you still got to deal with all the paperwork side of everything. And I think I just got overwhelmed, and with everything going on with the pandemic, I decided to kind of just shove it aside for 2021. And I plan to, relaunch it in a sense sometime this year.
Oh, yeah.
I put one of my own personal releases out on it last year. One of the first releases that I plan to put out this year is a song called Maximo, which is dedicated to my cousin Ricky, who passed away, unfortunately, a couple of months ago. So that will be the first release on it later this year. And then I'll start grabbing more from other artists, like I did, the very first year, and start pushing it more. But as far as 5 years, man, I'm not really sure. I would love to see it, go that far out and even further. It just really is dependent on how I can get myself better organized with the label and start, continue to learn about that side of the business, because it's completely different,
Right.
So
let me first acknowledge you by paying tribute to your cousin. I think that's fucking awesome. I think that's a great way to relaunch. With respect to your label art, I don't think many people know this, but Melina, your daughter, is on your logo, correct?
That's correct. Yeah,
Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to show her baby picture on there, and what your thought process was in choosing that photo.
So both my kids, they love music. I know one of your questions was about, have they gravitated to something like this? And, no, neither one of them have had any interest in DJing or learning about production or anything like that. When my daughter was a little bit younger, she wanted to learn how to play guitar. We tried, but she tried it out, and it wasn't really her thing. But music has always been something that she's loved, and she's already found, her own style and stuff that she likes. There's things that she's hipping me to that I had never heard of, in different groups, that she's into. And so, as from the time she was little and, in diapers, she was always touching my records and grabbing my stuff, and, one day I caught her, playing around my records, and she had one of them in her hand. I snapped the picture, and, my kids are my everything to me. So when I decided to do the label, I wanted something that was going to be personable, that, represented, my family in some way. And I, came across that picture of her holding it. I hit up Jesse. I said, hey, man, I'd really love to incorporate my daughter into the logo for 916 Music. And he goes, I got you. Jesse did his thing like he always does. And, the cover, or not even the cover, but the logo of 916 Music was born. And, I think it fits really well. So
I absolutely love it, man. I love just your authenticity and your commitment to your family. I think that says a lot about who you are as a man and as a father. So I just want to acknowledge you for that. I think
appreciate it.
It's awesome to interweave your family and your music life together, because that's certainly something that I'm striving for, and I'm doing the best I can with integrating all facets of my life with and around music.
Well, I say the same thing about you, man. I mean, like you said, we've known each other for almost 20 years, if not 20 years. And I've seen you from, those party days, and then transitioning into a father, a husband. And, you do a hell of a job, man. And I know you've had, some struggles, some ups and downs. But you always come out on top, and you continue to push yourself. And, you're an inspiration to me on the things that you do. And your drive, you don't take no for an answer. You always push through that no.
True.
And everything is, everything's a learning experience for you, regardless if it's no or it doesn't work out for you. Doesn't work out for you, you go on to the next thing, and you try to make that next thing great. So,
right on, man.
Props to you as well, man.
Thank you very much for acknowledging me.
Of course.
Now, one thing that I know that a lot of people don't know is that your son is a superstar soccer player, and he is just getting nothing but better every season. Tell us a little bit about that. How's that been, just raising your boy and seeing his true talent come out as an athlete? How have you guys grown with him, and what are some of the things that you've learned as a father, as you've seen this growth in your son?
Thank you, man, for bringing him up. Yeah, that that little dude is one of my best friends. Let's see. So my daughter's actually the first one that started out in soccer. She started out when she was 8. She played until her sophomore year in high school. And, right around that time, her and Nico are about 4 years apart. So, Nico would always watch her play. He would, practice some stuff on the sidelines. She went on from just regular, soccer to competitive soccer. And, in competitive soccer, there's a lot of traveling, a lot of, moving around different places. And I think he soaked it all in from that. And so he wanted to jump right into competitive. I didn't want to spend the money right away because it's very costly to go ahead and do that. So I said, look, man, let's go ahead and start you out on a rec team, see how you do. And if you do good, let's go ahead and we'll move you up. Well, the rec team at the time, they were lacking coaches. And so I didn't want him to miss his opportunity. As much as I didn't know shit about soccer at that time, I went ahead and I volunteered. And so I coached Nico his first 2 years. And thankfully, one of the parents who had been coaching soccer, who had older kids that had played at a competitive level, had a son on our team, and he volunteered. As soon as he saw Nico, he says, your son shouldn't be playing at a rec level. He's ready to go on to, a competitive team. I saw some things that came natural to him versus the kids that we were playing at a rec level. But again, I didn't want to push him too fast into competitive. So we stayed at rec for 2 years. He decided, I want to go on. I want to try out for competitive. And we said, okay, that's fine. Let's do it. From his first team in competitive to where he is right now, he's automatically catapulted up to, the higher level of where he was at. So in competitive, there are different levels within the age group, and he always made the top of that group. So he eventually went on to play for the DA, which is the Development Academy, which is ran by U.S. Soccer. He is now playing for an MPL team that is, I think they're ranked in the top 50 or 30. I don't know the exact number, but out of the entire country, or out of the entire country, that is pretty high for where he's at. This will be his last year, or not his last year, but this will be his last year before things really get serious for him. So starting his sophomore year is when we'll start visiting colleges that he'll be considering applying for, and trying to get in contact with their coaches and show interest in their team. But it's been a great experience. It's pretty much what our life is all about year round. I mean, we are gone almost every weekend. Like this Saturday, we have a game in Reno. And unfortunately, it's only one game for the weekend, so we're gonna shoot out there for the game and then come right back. But we have a lot of travel. There's a lot of money invested. But I'm just so proud of him. He's a straight A student. On top of that, we travel out to Rancho 3 nights a week for him to train. He wanted to challenge himself, and he wanted to be on a very competitive club. So he spent his first 5 years with a club called FC Elk Grove here in Elk Grove, and decided to move over to a club called San Juan, which is in Rancho. And he wanted to better himself as a player, and he wanted to be more competitive at this level. And so although it's a 30 35-minute commute there and back 3 nights a week. And, we don't get home till 9:30 at night. As long as he's willing to, continue this, I'm going to back him as much as he wants. But
That's amazing, man, because he's not going to forget that you were by his side this whole time. So
yeah,
props
yeah,
to that.
no.
That's truly amazing, the relationship that you're harvesting and cultivating with your son. That he's going to forever know that you're his number one supporter.
I'm tough on him. I'm not easy. I get that from my dad. That's just how my dad was with me. I played basketball from 3rd grade until my freshman year in college, and I played summer leagues, and I was really big into basketball. And I know I see a lot of my dad and myself and how I handle things with Nico, and he knows it's tough love. If he went out there and he played like shit, he knows I'm going to tell him. But he also knows if he went out there and he shined, he's going to get them props from me, and that's how it is. You know what I mean? But
do you ever say, shit, I sound like my dad?
in my head, I do, but I think, he's close with my dad, his grandfather as well. And I think he probably sees some of, me, my dad in me, and how I am with him. But at the end of the day, man, it's all love. He knows that, what I expect on the field is, as long as he's, maintaining those straight A's and he's a respectful kid and all that stuff, he knows that he knows how to separate the two.
Yeah.
Where,
Sure.
Yeah, you posted that unfortunate article about the Stanford player,
Yeah.
And I would never want him to feel where, he felt so pressured that he had to go to that extreme, and that's why we always talk. We have an open line of communication. I always tell him if there's anything that you're ever bothering you, shit, even up to the point of, hey, if you ever don't want to play this sport anymore, if you're done playing soccer, just let me know. He has my full support. And, my daughter was the same way. She stopped a little prematurely. I was hoping that she was going to go through the rest of high school because she was a fantastic player as well, but it just wasn't for her anymore. And I told her, hey, just let me know. If you don't want to play anymore, all good. They still have my love and support at the end of the day. So
yeah, that article was really unfortunate. I did think of you when I read that and when I posted it. I'm very glad that you read that, and it's awesome just to hear you confirm that you maintain a level of communication with your children. I think it's so important to check in on them, and see how they're doing. Sometimes they don't know how to articulate their feelings and emotions, and and unfortunately for those types of parents that receive that terrible news or experience that tragedy, it's just one question away from really understanding who your kids are and what they're going through. So I give you props on that, man. Good job on maintaining that line of communication.
Thanks, man. It's tough. They're a different kind of generation, man. All I can tell you, man, is just be prepared. The teenage years are pretty tough, and this day and age, it's completely different than when we grew up and when we were teenagers. I don't know what it is, man. It's tough. It really is. But as long as you have that open line of communication, make your child feel like you're prying all the time. Just knowing that you're there for them. I think it's huge. So.
Do you think that the social media development and the growth in the internet and everything like that, do you think that has created a level of secrecy amongst how younger kids communicate, and they're able to be more deceitful and lie?
Yes, I think social media in general for anything has been a bad thing, especially for the kids of this generation. Cell phones, things of that nature. Think about it. We didn't have those kind of things back then. If someone wanted to talk shit or bully someone, they did it to their face and then they went on for their day. It wasn't where they did it. Yeah. Where they continued it, to where they could share it to the masses, use a phone or some type of communication device. It's just completely different, man. I feel it's very tough to raise a child in this day and age, you know what I mean, compared to us and even the generation before us.
What have been some of your biggest challenges in raising your children with social media?
basically the thing is that I've always taught them is think before you post, and think before you share a picture, a meme, any of that stuff, because once it's out there, you can't pull it back in. And that's one thing that I've stressed with my kids is that, hey, you say something derogatory towards somebody, that could still be there 10, even 20 years when you decide to get a job or you decide to do something that, you want to put yourself out there, and someone comes back and says, hey, didn't you call this somebody something, something back in, 2022? You know what I mean? So I've always told them, hey, watch what you say, watch what you post. Even a communication between a friend who can one day become an ex-friend, something that you might have texted can come back and bite you in the ass one day. So
Yeah.
always think before you write, always think before you post. And that's what I've tried to instill in them since they've both gotten, cell phones, and have access to, different apps and the web and YouTube and all that. So.
No, the good words and good advice, man. And relating to the pandemic, how did you guys manage to go through that? And you and Helika both work, and your kids were, I'm presuming, were working from home or going from home on Zoom as well. We had similar circumstances in our end, where we both work at home, and the four kids, when we had them, they all had Zoom calls, and we're all in different grades. So I can only imagine, that you guys experienced the same type of difficulties we did with respect to space and just kind of navigating the social stresses as the pandemic grew.
You know what, man? I'll be honest. I was actually very fortunate because the kids were a little bit older, and I always thought, man, folks that have those young kids, I'd say anyone under 12, yeah, it's tough. It was tough, man. My daughter was just wrapping up her senior year in high school. And Nico was in his 8th grade, getting ready to transition to freshman year. And to be honest, man, they stayed within their own, space, their rooms where they did their work. They went through their classes. Nico absolutely loved it. Believe it or not, is as much as he's big into soccer, he's a very shy and, to himself kind of guy. He doesn't like to be around a lot of people. He doesn't like a lot of attention. So for him, he felt comfortable at home, and he was able to, that's where we started to notice his change in his grades and how they got even better. And, he seemed to retain a lot more than when he was going to school. Although we were worried, once he had spent a year of doing that going into his freshman year, I don't know what it was, but I think that stay at home actually helped him into where he is right now, when it comes to his studies.
Yeah.
But
Agree. I mean, because aside from the spatial issues that we encountered, just having more time with the children in the morning for breakfast and being home in time for dinner, not having to commute somewhere, because in my full-time career, there's many days of the week that I would be commuting to the Bay Area and beyond.
remember,
And that would mean I'd leave early in the morning or come home late at night. And so I'm missing one or two meals with the kids. And that was actually a blessing for me during the pandemic, and having that extra time and not having to commute or travel as much as I normally would have prior to the pandemic. So I think there's definitely a lot of pluses that came out from that. I think there are ways to be more productive in that setting.
I agree completely. I mean, just like you, I wasn't commuting to the Bay, but I was commuting from Elk Grove into Sac into my home office. And, it was about a 45-minute there and back commute, which is kind of brutal because, like I said, I'd have to rush home, grab Nico, head out to, soccer practice. And then, we did the transition of work from home. And I've been fortunate enough to still, continue that. And it's helped out tremendously with getting Nico to and from school, having to help my daughter out with something. It definitely gave me a lot more time, to be around them and not have to rush like we usually would, pre-pandemic. So, Definitely some pluses, I agree, which, the crazy part is that the one thing I do kick myself in the butt about is that I didn't take all the opportunity to really dive into more music stuff during this time when a lot of people did. You know what I mean? I think I got too much into my head, and I lost the, the drive to want to, produce music and, get on the decks and mix some music. And that's one of the things that I kick myself in the ass that I wish I would have done during the pandemic, because there's always something new to learn.
Yep.
When making music. There's always, a new plugin or, some new step in Ableton, or, there's just always something that you want to learn and soak in and do to better your production. And unfortunately, I didn't do that, and I kicked myself in the ass for not doing that.
Well,
But
you're doing it. You got back into it, and I know that you've been upgrading slowly pieces of your studio, so to speak. What's your favorite piece of hardware right now that you're using?
you know what, man, I'm a simple guy. I'll be honest. I'm not a true musician. I can't sit there and play the keys. I wish I could. Although I do have two small keyboards. I have a TR6S and then a push. And I have to say the push is my favorite piece to use, just because of how it works with Ableton. I like simplicity. I'm old. I'm going to be 46, and my brain doesn't function like I did in my 20s, man. So I need simplicity, to be honest. You know what I mean? I need something where I can just dive in and I can put out my ideas, without having to go, oh, okay, well, how do I have to do this step first? And how do I program this first? I know it comes with production, is just that at my age and how the fact that I started so late, I need simplicity. I need something simple. So my Push 2 is my go-to.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. It works for me. It's what I've done most of my production on. I'll dabble a little bit in keys, but I'm not that great in it, to be honest. I'm a sample producer. I chop up samples, and that is, my main source of creating what I create. But I love it. You know what I mean? I don't consider myself the greatest at it. I'm still learning. But I'm also proud of what I've done and what I've put out. And, when I got friends like you and Hytham and Cisco and guys that really, show me the love, the legitimate true love and what I do and what I put out, it makes me want to put things out, and continue to put things out, so, but yeah.
You're definitely doing a great job. Shout out to Selecta Recordings, giving you props as well. So yeah, man, just keep pushing, keep plugging away. You've inspired me to look into some hardware too. I may actually consider buying the Push 2 as well, and seeing how that works with my production. I'm pretty excited to get a couple pieces of hardware once we move in to our new house. So,
yeah, congratulations on the new house, man. I'm excited for you guys, you and Stacy and the kids. That's awesome, man. And yeah, I mean, the Push 2, I think you'll love it. We were talking just the other day at Hytham's about, equipment and things like that. John Hawley, he's known for using, the Roland products, and he's a fucking Jedi at using those, Yeah. I don't have the know or knowledge of Mr. John Hawley, which is one of my favorites, production and DJ, but, he's a Roland guy. And, I would dabble in grabbing a piece of Roland gear as well, to incorporate in there. So
I think the key is just kind of dissecting what we're talking about. The key is just to find what works best for you, for your style and for your knowledge and what you're looking to get out of production. And there's so many pieces of hardware and software and computers out there that, we can run in circles, but if we just find something that resonates with us and we take it and we just go with it, I think that's a good recipe for success.
I agree, man. Because like I was telling you too, I started out with Machine. We both did. I've had a couple of Machine products. I had the MK1 and the MK2, and I think I got the MK Studio, or the Machine Studio. And I'll be honest, I struggled with the mapping, with Ableton and getting it hooked up. And I loved using it as a standalone with native instruments, but I just couldn't get it to talk with Ableton. I struggled with it. And once I grabbed the push, it was just magic for me, because it was just plug and play. Whatever I did on it, it did it on Ableton, and it worked for me, and there's, the debate of Ableton versus Logic, and, different DAWs. And, many people say that, Logic sounds better than Ableton does. But, I think of someone like John Hawley. Again, he's a Jedi using Ableton. And I mean, his stuff just sounds phenomenal. So, I try to learn and take pieces from him. And Diego, shout out to Diego Valle for always being there when I ask questions, or I have any, I need some pointers or whatever. He's one guy here locally in Sacramento that I respect. And whenever I hit him up, I could not talk to Diego for 2-3 months, and I'll hit him up and say, hey, Diego, I got this question, man. Hey, what do I do here? Doesn't even bat an eye, man. He jumps right in and he helps out, So, when you got
resource here locally, and we've got such a great pool of artists in Sacramento. I'm so blessed that we're part of this community. A whole bunch of our friends here on the chat as well. So big props to everybody supporting us and continuing to drive that movement forward.
Definitely. Lots of great talent in Sacramento. It's an honor to, be amongst everyone that's out here, man. When I took that hiatus and I came back, it's almost like I had to start all over again, because there were a lot of folks that didn't know me from the late 90s and early 2000s, you know what I mean? And so I've had to kind of reestablish, my name, and so it's been tough.
On Prophets of Sound and the recovery parties.
Yes, man. Yeah, those were good days, man. I mean, shout out to guys like Rick V, who had In the Mix Records back in the days, Jake Esparza, who actually helped me get one of my first gigs, aside from Mike Regan, at Tower Club. There's a lot of guys that have paved the way and that I have a lot of respect for, that showed me love and still show me love to this day. And I'm forever grateful for that. So.
Hell yeah. Well, listen, brother, we got to wrap up here, but we had so many wonderful, great nuggets to talk about. And I really am truly blessed that you came on here today and just had a conversation with me. What's one thing that you can leave the audience to inspire them if they're looking to take their music game or their life in general to the next level? And what are some parting words for you?
Man, one of the biggest things is age is just a number, man. If you have goals, musical goals, and it's something that you are striving to do, just go out there and do it. And, don't let anyone hold you back. Don't let people that, there's a lot of opinions in this music world. It doesn't matter if it's on the DJ side, the production side. Everyone has an opinion on how you should do it, what you should use, how you should create. As long as you're staying true to what you want to do, and you're staying on the course of reaching the goals that you want to reach, they can just continue to push to do those, because, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to tell you, oh, you can't do it, or why are you doing it, or why did you do it that way? And honestly, at the end of the day, none of their opinions matter, man. It's really how you feel. And also keep a small circle of friends that aren't going to bullshit you on what you've done and what you've achieved. They're really going to be there for you, whether they got good advice or bad advice. I mean, as long as they're going to tell you, and show you that love and be there for you. That's another thing, is to, keep good people around you. Because you could definitely lose focus if you don't have that good support group as well. So.
Oh yeah, man. Wise words.
Definitely.
Brother, thank you so much for coming today. Much love. Sending you much love. Thank you everybody in the chat for joining. Big support from the Sacramento community. So thank you guys so much. John, we'll talk again soon, right?
All right, man. Love you, brother.
All right. Love you. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Later.